This weekend of painting was supposed to be a huge leap forward, but we hit a brick wall, and hard. We are moving into this 100-year-old house that my great-grandparents built over 100 years ago. And we're trying to move out of our older house by the first week of June. And all of that was happening with a huge asterisk. We still don't technically own the place, and it gets much, much worse. Now, our original closing date was May 20th, but a paperwork delay pushed it back a week to May 27th. The sellers graciously told us that we could go on and start painting anyway. No big deal, we thought. The plan seemed solid, and Miss Ann was already helping Chloe and Megan with what is, in my opinion, the most mind-numbingly tedious part of any project, picking the colors.
We settled on the colors agreeable gray for the walls in most of the rooms, woodland stone in some of the other rooms, and Swiss coffee for the trim.
Now, we were set to start painting Saturday morning. The week before I'd tried to get ahead of the game, I'd installed an air conditioner upstairs so that our friends wouldn't overheat, and I repaired that sheetrock patch where the old heater used to be. I was honestly pretty anxious to see how it would look with a coat of paint on it. I'd never done that kind of work before, and I still hadn't finished that big ceiling patch. Time was already running out. Now, I'm not a painter. In fact, you'd rather hear me sing an opera than have me paint your house. So we were relying heavily on the expertise of our friends. We had borrowed a lot of supplies from Mary's Uncle Tony, including a lot of drop cloths. But when I mentioned this to Mary, she said,
as long as the paint's wet, I don't think we necessarily need a bunch of drop cloths. As long as we just clean up our mess as we go, this should be fun.
The big day found Megan and me scraping paint off a door frame. It was flaky and needed to come off before it could be painted, something that would lead us down a path of doom later that morning. Are you having fun?
I
am. Your idea of fun and my idea of fun are two different things.
No, it's not. It's just I'm doing it myself. I'm figuring it out. And get some satisfaction out of that. Wow, look at this. Look at the little fleur-de-lis on the doors. You see them?
While Megan kept scraping paint, I went to prime that sheetrock patch where the old wall heater had been, and I made a royal mess. Mary's words may be true for a drop or two of paint, but not for a quarter of a gallon on pine floors. It just spreads and spreads and spreads. After scooping up the worst of the paint with a paintbrush and applying it to the wall, we managed to avert that crisis. Little did I know how much not using drop cloths would come to haunt us a couple weeks later. But just as the chaos was starting to feel like too much, the cavalry finally arrived. Soon after the house was filled with friends, Miss Ann started with a paint roller in Chloe's bedroom, with Chloe and Mary, our resident Coke Zero addict, painting the edges that she couldn't get with the roller. Evan and Unique prepped the foyer walls for painting, and Colby began rolling the living room, with Danza cutting in the edges. It was amazing to see everyone jump in, and they were making quick work of the first bedroom. Now, my first two jobs were patching the sheetrock and getting it ready to paint, but I also had to keep Miss Ann's paint trays full. And in my opinion, she never had enough. So I decided to solve that problem once and for all.
All right. Is that enough, Rob? That's enough. Just do it. I said that's enough.
While I was getting into my own trouble with Miss Ann, I heard some screaming outside. Thankfully, it was just the kids entertaining Riley, the little blue heeler puppy. I was grateful that they were keeping that little destructive monster occupied. When my mother showed up and was asked to help scrape the paint off the doors, she suggested that stripping the doors would be much more effective. Little did we know what would be involved in that job.
This is years of paint. Marshall's helping. We're getting this done.
Good job, Marshall. So is this the third or the fourth one, Mother?
It's going to be the second one I clobber you with if you keep on harassing me.
Having successfully irritated Miss Ann and my mother, and especially with all the noise and the chaos in the house, I decided to run to the barn down the road to get a tool for my own sheetrock work. And that's when I saw an opportunity. I should have brought the camera. I came down to the barn to get a little knife sharpener, and these cows over here were ready to move across the road. They were standing at the gate behind me. I've been meaning to do it for a while, and 3 of them went back along the paddock, and the others started running down the road. And anyway, first time I've ever had a problem without cars or dogs or something involved. But anyway, a minute later, they were all back into the field. I had delayed moving the cows because of the work on the house, and so I jumped at the opportunity to move them. The cows running down the road for a couple minutes wasn't that big of a deal, but after that little bit of tension, I definitely met my excitement quota for the day. It was a good reminder that things weren't going to plan. A lesson we were learning all too well is the new date for the closing on the house had been delayed as well. When I got back to the house, the painting crew was making incredible progress. By 1 o'clock, they were painting even more rooms in the house and had begun putting on second coats of paint in the first rooms they had painted. But while they were moving forward, I felt like I was going backwards. I kept getting bogged down with more and more patches of sheetrock that needed to be cut out and fixed. And unfortunately, our energized crew had to leave around 3 o'clock for a birthday party, and the pace slowed down dramatically. But after the whirlwind of the day, we did have one surprise visitor show up. Not to work, but to bring coffee and some much-needed encouragement. This is the color of paint for the dining room. We got the first coat of paint in this room, and you can't even tell where that old wall heater had been. Our bedroom, we got the first coat of paint on all but 2 sections right there. I had to fix those, and they're still not dry. These other 2 rooms look quite good, I think. This is 2 coats in here and 2 coats in here. We got a lot done, but to be honest with you, I'm ready to go home. After resting Sunday, many of us were sick. We came in Monday morning hoping for a fresh start, but that ghost of the old blue paint mocked us through the 2 coats of paint. Good morning, Miss Ann.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you tell there's getting a third coat?
That, you can tell it's still bluish. But as discouraging as that was, the real low point wasn't just that one thing. It was this endless, soul-crushing cycle of finding patch after patch after patch that needed to be fixed in the sheetrock. My life just became a blur of white dust, patch, sand, prime. Between the new cracks I kept finding and still fighting that stubborn ceiling patch, the work was monotonous and endless. It felt like every wall was hiding another problem. In fact, back on Thursday night, the night before everyone arrived, I had found another major issue. It's 5 o'clock before everybody's about to come paint tomorrow morning, and we've got this little board of sheetrock that's got to be replaced. And now, days later, I was still dealing with the consequences. Each new patch limited what we could actually paint. And Miss Ann confirmed that we couldn't just paint over them.
They just dot the holes. You can see it in the heart because over time it does change. So don't wait too long.
She was right, and it brought our progress to a crawl. Meanwhile, my mother had rooked my dad into help stripping the doors, and they were locked into that miserable battle. It was just punch after punch to the gut. But just when our motivation was at its lowest, our friend Trey from Ripley, Mississippi, arrived as a surprise reinforcement, giving us a much-needed second wind, but most importantly, time that we could spend with a friend that we hadn't seen in years. And we got a lot done before we finished for the day Monday. By Wednesday, our saint, Anne, came to help paint again. And this time they were painting the trim around the house, and they developed their own unique system of efficiency. Little did we know that this would be the last day that we could paint for a week. We had been getting sicker and sicker with sinus problems, and finally spent the rest of the afternoon Wednesday at the doctor's office, and we were told to go to bed. If being sick wasn't enough, we had gotten word that our May 27th closing had also been delayed. And then when we got the paperwork for the new date of May 30th, the price on it was completely wrong. It seemed like every obstacle was hitting us. The worst part, we were doing all this work on a house that we didn't own. The night before we were finally scheduled to close, Jay, the McCreary's oldest son, brought Mr. McCreary out for one last look. Seeing him walk through the house that he and Miss Doris had loved and invested in for over half a century, I couldn't help but think about what my dad had said just a few days earlier.
Mr. McCreary has done so much work, Mr. and Ms. McCreary. I mean, it is amazing the things, because this was a real old, airy house, but they have done so much work. I mean, they spent a lifetime working on this place, 50 years.
My dad's words echoed in my head. This is the house that the McCreary's legacy, built through decades of sheetrocking, patching, plumbing, electrical work. And that's when I realized we weren't just moving into an old house. We were stepping into that legacy. And our work and our legacy on this place was just being born. I choked up as Jay snapped this picture before they left. The next day we were sitting in the closing attorney's office, and I dared the McCreary's real estate agent to just call Jay and say, hey, there's a problem with the closing. Sometimes you just have to have a little levity in life. After all, that air conditioner that we needed so everyone could work upstairs, we never needed. We never got the painting done upstairs. And that patch that I was fixing in the bathroom, we never got that bathroom fixed either. And of course, Jay just laughed graciously, but I couldn't help but wonder if he was ready to pop me with a flexible end of a fishing rod. Well, we just walked out of the closing office.
And we are officially homeowners of the old Dowdle Farmstead.
And we were surprised at the closing with this painting that Mark produced, the youngest of the 5 McCreary boys. And the family left this with us at closing.
That was a really great surprise.
Now we've just got work to do to get ready and move in.
Now, right? This was the easy part?
This was the easy part.
Yay.